Okay, so here we have a beautiful baitfish, craft fur baitfish, but this fly has been tied with the hopes that it will suspend. So we're going to do a fair test. We're going to get it nice and wet, and then we'll drop it in again. We're just wetting it up really well. I think it's fair to say that that is wet. That's about as wet as it can get. And now you can see the slack in the fishing line and how slowly it just hovers. It will actually sink to the bottom. I could put a little bit more foam, but that is behaving really exactly how I intended. Just a hover. You can see the slack in the fishing line and it just hovers. Great, great, great fly. So I say we switch the camera angle and let's tie this guy. Man, look at that action. Hi, welcome to Slick Willy Flying. Today we're going to do something that I'm super excited about. Today we're going to make a suspending craft fur baitfish. It's actually a blend of craft fur and goat hair. So for the body, for the craft fur and the tail, I'm using, in this one I used cream color select craft fur. But I think in the one I'm about to tie, I'm probably going to blend a little bit of sand and a little bit of cream just to give it a little bit more color. And then as I work my way forward, the longer hairs, I'm using Arctic Goat in olive and in white. For eyes, I have these Epoxy living eyes and 3D living eyes, and they are 8mm. I'm also going to use a little bit of angel hair and a little bit of Krystal flash, one strand of Krystal flash probably, little UV resin. But the most important part of this is I put a little bit of foam on the body. Because what I want this fly to do, between the UV resin and the hook weight, it will make the fly begin to sink once the fly is wet. This fly must be wet to swim right. You saw in the video that it will sink really slowly. So what I'm looking for is a fly that's not going to be on the surface, that I could work, a foot below the surface, 10 inches below the surface. I'm going to be able to decide where in the water column do I want to swim this fly. And that's what this suspending fly will do. And it's super cool, super easy. And so don't forget to hit the like, subscribe. Let's change the camera angle. I will pre-prep some materials so it'll go quick. And let's tie a fly. Okay, so let's pop this out. This isn't going to exactly look the same because this fly just came out of that water tank. So it's going to look a little bit different when it's dry. But I think most everyone understands that. One thing we didn't talk about, for this fly I'm using a Mustad 34007 in size 2.0. Pretty much there's a huge range of hooks that would work nicely. But that's the hook that I choose for this fly. And like a lot of the flies that I tie, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of super glue on the hook. And now I'm going to go ahead and start my thread in that wet super glue. For thread I'm using, I have to check it. I think this is 6.0 Vevus in white. But it might be a different thread. I'm sure that it's a good strong thread. It is 6.0 Vevus, as I suspected. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a second to set up. And I'm going to get a little bit of white craft fur. There's a couple of things that we actually didn't speak about when we were talking about this particular fly. Number one, this fly can be tied in pretty much any color. Alright, so I'm back. I had a little interruption. We had some kids selling stuff at the door. Okay, so I have actually prepped my first piece of craft fur, but what I'm going to actually start with is this little tiny foam cylinder. This is about, I'll check it, but I think this can't be more than like 1 millimeter, possibly it's 2 millimeter, but it's very thin. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna attach this to the body, to the shank of the hook, and I'm just gonna lash it down so that it looks like it's sitting pretty much on the same side. It doesn't really matter, but I think that it's important to keep it on the one side or the other. You can put it underneath or you can put it on above. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to affect the way the hook rides in the water. I want the hook to ride the way it naturally wants to ride, which is hook side down. Now, if I was using a lot of material, which I'm typically not, I would absolutely put a second piece of foam on, which I can do for this video. I don't normally put 2 pieces of foam. I think it makes the fly ride a little bit too high. Now, if I was using a 4-0 hook, or if I was using a ton of, let's say, bucktail, or not bucktail, but some form of material that wants to sink, you know, whatever you like, then having this double is a good idea. Cut off this little tag, but now I can absolutely guarantee that this particular fly is not going to sink to the bottom. This one is going to definitely suspend just as we want it to, just like you saw in the video. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a clump of craft fur to make the tail. And now here again, this is all personal choice. So I like this fly to be a little long. I don't want it to be massively long, but let's say twice the length of the hook shank. So that's about, or 1.5 hook shanks, let's say. So that's about it right there. So I don't want all this extra material. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this off, and that will also help me to tie on this clump nice and neat. Right at the back, a couple of loose wraps like we do always. I'm going to make sure that I've worked it around nicely, and then we just crank that tight. Now what I like to do at this point is I like to give it that one piece of Krystal flash, because at this point that one piece of Krystal flash will almost look like a lateral line on this fly. So if I pull out one strand carefully, and untwist it carefully, I can fold it in half, okay, I can fold it in half. I can put it on my side first so that the length is good, and tie that down. Then I can take it to the opposite side, get it tied down, and now I just want to make sure that I like where it is, which I do, and just lock it down. Then I could take my scissors and I can open that loop. And if it's too long, I could trim the length. Just like that. Perfect. And that's pretty much exactly what I wanted. Alright. So now you have a couple options. Something that we didn't talk about. You can put a piece of flat braid on the body, which if the body was ever to shine through, the flat braid would stop it from really shining through. But I don't think it's really that necessary. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to put a clump on the bottom, a clump on the top. I'm going to use sand on top and white on the bottom, or cream, I'm sorry. Then I'm going to put one last white, the longer goat hair, and one olive. So there's 4 clumps coming and some angel hair. So we could start with the top, it's no problem. And for the top, we said we were going to use sand. We're still going with the extra select. And really, I don't get big clumps. I don't think that we need really big clumps. I think that I like to keep my flies more on the sparse side, and that will also, besides the fact that I think they swim better, is they cast a lot better when you don't have a ton of materials. So I just pulled out all the shorts, make sure the longs aren't too bad. Now it's important that we think about the taper of a bait fish. So this clump should not be as long as the tail. It should be slightly shorter than the tail. And you have to leave room for the reverse tie. So I need to clip this about where my fingers are. You know, a lot of this lengths, they will become second nature to you with the more you tie these kind of flies. It just becomes like obvious once you tie a few. So a couple of loose wraps. Now I don't want to work it all the way around the shank, but I do want it to work around the top half of the hook. So I do want to give it a little bit there, and then I can just crank this down. Perfect. Now we're going to flip it over, and I'm going to do the same on the bottom. And all we've done is give this fly a little bit more color. So now I'm going back to the cream. Again, I'm not taking a big clump. I don't want a lot. I want this fly to be castable. You know, if you have a big clumpy fly, and I'm sure that you've all done this, and then you have any kind of wind, it becomes extremely more difficult to cast that fly when there's wind. So that's really the reason that I don't like having too long material. So now we're going to do the same thing, and again I'm thinking about my taper, and in fact the bottom I want even actually shorter than the top, but the tie-in point is the same. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this off. And now we're going to get this tied in. You notice that I don't care that I have it all on my side of the hook right now. A couple of loose wraps. I'm going to distribute this so that there's coverage, and there is. And now we can lock this down. Perfect. And now I can use a needle, which have all kind of disappeared on me here. And I can distribute around the hook nicely. Just like that. Perfect. That is coming out so nice. So, you know, at this point you have a ton of options. You can put hackle feathers to give it a barred look on the side. You could put additional crystal flash. There's so much that you can do, but that's not what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of angel hair, and I don't need a big clump again. I'm going to just take, I don't even know how to explain it. I'll show it to you here in a second. But, you know, again, all of these kind of decisions, how much flash, how much craft fur, you know, these are really up to the fly tire. So this is my clump. It's not a lot, but angel hair comes in kind of a long piece. So I'm going to go ahead and fold it in half. Now I'm going to put it right on top of the hook. A couple of loose wraps just to make sure it stays. And now I'm going to use my thumb to kind of work this around, and I really want it to stay on the top half of the hook. I don't want it to go all the way around. I want it to be more on the top. And now I'm just going to make sure we lock that in. Beautiful. Super nice. Super happy with how that turned out. Perfect. So now we are going to go and put on the reverse tie goat hair. So we're done with the craft fur. We're done with the flash. I'm not going to use any other flash. So I'm going to go to my white Arctic goat hair, and you can see how long these fibers are. These are super long, but I'm not going to use the whole length. So I'm just going to take off. Right now I'm going to grab a clump. It doesn't have to be super long. I mean super thick, I'm sorry. I'm going to grab about this much that I'm showing you there. And I'm just going to go ahead and snip that off the hide. So now my length. I want the length of this goat hair to be pretty much just short of the end of the tail. But then I'm going to reverse tie it, so I have to add this length. So I'm just guesstimating, and I think that's close enough. And we go ahead and trim this up. Reverse it in my hands. Couple of loose wraps. And it's important that I keep, don't know why that lamp is flickering. I hope it's not making the video bad. But it's important that I keep the white pretty much on the bottom half. It's important for me anyway. And then we're going to use olive on the top half. And once I'm happy that it's on the bottom half, now I'm going to go ahead and just lock this in. Nice and hard so it stays there. Now this little bit of tag, if it bothers you, you can cut it off. It doesn't really bother me, so we're going to leave it there. Make sure that the white goat hair is only on the bottom half of the hook. So now we're going to go for the olive goat hair. And we're going to do the exact same thing. Now the piece of olive that I have is a little bit shorter than that white. So I might use the entire length. I'm just going to give it a tiny little trim on the end just to make it neat. Just squaring up the end so it'll tie in a little bit neat. And now I'm going to go ahead and put this on at the exact same tie-in point and 2 loose wraps. And it's important that we keep the olive on top and the white separated. And once I'm happy with that, and I am, then we can just lock that in nice and hard. Alright, so now we're going to talk a little bit about reverse ties. We've talked about it before, but we're going to talk about it again. It's important. This one is a little bit long. I'm going to cut some of this tag off. Don't really like the way that ended up looking. But that's fine. Right there is fine. Okay. That's not going to bother me. So what's important is you have to bring your thread to that exact point where you want the fur, the fibers to start bending back. So I've brought it forward, not all the way to the eye, but pretty far forward. And now I'm going to use my fingers a little here to try and separate the fibers. Then I'm going to use my little push tool to fully separate and get everything going in the right direction. Now it's important that when you do this, that you take your time a little bit and just make sure that everything is where you want it. You can still make some minor changes at this point if you need to. But I'm happy with the way this looks. And what we're going to do now, and this is important, is before you start tying or wrapping, you have to bring your thread forward, and then you make a little wall or a little block, a little, I don't know what you want to call it, walls, I guess the best way to say it, in front of the fibers before you take that lap around the fibers as I'm doing there. Now, when I take that first one or two laps, I don't really crank hard. I'm going to show you why. Do it again. So there's one. I'll get a little more thread out because I don't want to pull hard. Say I've done 3 laps now. So now you see the shape. So at this point, you really need to look at your fly and decide, am I happy with this fly? Do I like the way this looks? And I think it looks spectacular. I'm loving it. So now I'm just going to go ahead and crank this hard. And because I'm going to use UV resin, I can put a whip finish in right now. Now, if you choose, there's a million things that you could do. You can put in a hackle feather at this point. You can put in ostrich hurl on top. There's so many things that people can do to just give this whatever additional features you might be looking for in your fly. Personally, I think that this is perfect. It has just the right amount of flash for me, and I couldn't be happier with this. So because I'm using UV resin, I'm going to go ahead and cut that off because there's no reason for me to do anything more with the knot. The UV resin will lock it all in. So now I'm going to take a second to use my little vacuum cleaner here and clean up because I got a little bit of a craft fur mess everywhere. Alright, so I'm not sure if we're going to do the eyes or not, just to keep the video short. I'll probably fast forward through it. I have other videos that I can link on how I put the eyes on a fly. Alright, so we're back. So there it is. Super simple tie. Nothing complicated here. It just takes a little bit of time to get all your little materials ready. Really, the color combos, the amount of features you want to put on, that's all up to the fly tyer. You can add so many things to this and make this, you know, as awesome or as simple as you want it to be. The amount of foam is of course going to be determined by the amount of materials and what type of materials. So the foam cylinders you can get in a variety of sizes. You can get them in a variety of colors. But for this kind of fly, I mean, if you tie a nice bait fish, you really should not have it shouldn't be visible. It should just kind of be there just to provide the flotation that you're looking for. And for me, the perfect amount of flotation is that it's gonna sink super slowly. I want it below the surface. I don't want this to ride on top like a popper. But I don't want it to sink so fast that I can't determine where in the water column am I going to fish this fly. So for me, this is just an awesome way to suspend it and have it the way I want it. So thank you for watching. Hope you're still enjoying cocktails with me. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. And good luck catching, and see you on the next video.